that role that everybody knows, that myself and my wife wished to carry on, but was stopped from being able to do that back in 2020.
Tremors shook the royal household tonight as reports emerged that Prince Harry was left in tears after Samantha Markle presented what she claims are explosive DNA results tied to Meghan's past. According to insiders, the Duke was completely blindsided, caught in a moment of raw emotion, struggling to process information he had never anticipated encountering. His voice quivered, his eyes rimmed red, as a quiet storm of betrayal and disbelief rippled through his closest confidants. The questions at the heart of this revelation are complex and unsettling. Was this the revelation of a hidden chapter from 1997, a sealed record finally coming to light, or a family secret rewritten and validated through science? Meghan is said to be furious, Samantha unflinching, and the potential consequences of these alleged DNA results may reshape everything. But what did this DNA test actually reveal, and why has it surfaced now? The moment these purported results came to the forefront is being described as far from rumour or hearsay. It is not a blurry photograph, not the claim of an anonymous source, but rather a precise allegation of DNA evidence. Samantha Markle contends that the long-whispered mystery surrounding 1997 can no longer be dismissed as speculation. Once buried in online forums and investigative threads, she claims genetic testing has produced results that tie directly to that year. The same year repeatedly identified as a missing link in Meghan Markle's timeline. For years, critics had fixated on 1997 as an unexplained gap, a year of unclear events in Meghan's life. Now, Samantha asserts that science has entered the debate, amplifying its intensity. According to her, genetic markers allegedly link Meghan to a child who has long been the subject of persistent speculation. Samantha frames this not as conjecture or rumour, but as something tangible: laboratory documentation, measurable biological data, evidence that does not bend to narrative, opinion, or public perception. DNA, unlike memory or curated stories, remains immutable. Sources suggest that when Harry first saw the documents, he was unprepared for the emotional weight of what lay before him. There were no rehearsed statements, no carefully phrased responses, just papers detailing alleged genetic connections from 1997. That year would later become contentious when records under the name Rachel Meghan Markle were reportedly sealed in December 2018. 7 months after Harry and Meghan's May 2018 wedding. Witnesses describe him as visibly shaken, overwhelmed, stunned, the type of shock that fills a room with heavy silence when comprehension fails.
Certainly after the pandemic and everything else, we crave that. We crave being able to go high and
Those with insight into the moment describe a cascade of disbelief, confusion, tears, and urgent questions. Even if the allegations are false, the emotional impact would have been immense. If true, the implications extend far beyond personal distress, raising questions about trust, timing, and the completeness of information shared with him throughout the years. Samantha's approach appears highly deliberate. She has transitioned from emotional accusation to claims grounded in what she portrays as verifiable proof. By invoking DNA testing, she shifts the discourse from opinion and narrative to biological evidence. This shift transforms the debate entirely. It is no longer about conflicting interviews, tabloid coverage, or media speculation. It is about immutable genetic truth, something that cannot be manipulated to suit perception. In a world dominated by crafted narratives, DNA stands alone, resistant to distortion or influence. The gravity of this claim lies in the potential implications. If these alleged genetic results truly link Meghan to events from 1997, why did that year become so contentious? Why were records reportedly sealed in December 2018 after Meghan's integration into the royal family? And most importantly, what had Harry known before being confronted with this alleged evidence? Sources suggest that his distress stems not just from the claim itself, but from timing, trust, and the realization that crucial information may have been withheld. Science entering the discussion changes the stakes completely. It is no longer about who said what in a media interview. It is about tangible evidence. As the alleged documents quietly circulate, heavier questions arise. What do the DNA results truly demonstrate? And who might have been concerned enough to restrict access to the associated records? The initial shock of viewing these documents is compounded by a deeply personal layer. The story Harry believed about Meghan's past may no longer align with the alleged science. From the outset, Meghan's public narrative has been consistent: an independent woman navigating Hollywood, overcoming family tensions, and stepping into royal life with integrity, strength, and resilience. This story shaped public perception and formed the foundation Harry relied upon when defending her, confronting critics, and even standing firm against Samantha Markle. Yet Samantha has long maintained that the public version of Meghan's history is incomplete, not fabricated, but carefully edited, certain chapters smoothed, events shortened, key moments left unexplained. At the centre of her claims lies 1997, identified by online investigators as a critical gap, potentially tied to birth records under the name Rachel Meghan Markle. The sealing of related records in December 2018, 7 months after the royal wedding, fueled intense speculation. Meghan had become fully integrated into the royal family under relentless global attention. Why would documents from decades prior suddenly be inaccessible? While legal protections for sealing records.
And so, well, a 5-week study program that doesn't equate with working at the embassy.
Privacy concerns, clerical corrections, ongoing investigations exist. The sequence of events has created public curiosity and speculation. For Harry, the emotional weight is not just about the claim itself, but about the possibility that life-altering decisions were made based on incomplete understanding of Meghan's past. The tension between the story Harry trusted and the alleged scientific evidence is undeniable. DNA does not adjust to narrative or PR strategy. It reflects reality in its purest form. Sources close to Harry describe him as wrestling with both the emotional and logical consequences of this revelation. If the concerns Samantha had raised in the past now appear validated by science, the implications for his personal and public life are profound. Attention circles again to 1997 and the December 2018 sealing of records. The divide between narrative and evidence sharpens. Perhaps the truth lies not in what was said, but in what was left unspoken. Years ago, online investigators claimed to locate a birth entry for Rachel Meghan Markle in California for 1997. On its own, this finding might have gone unnoticed, but once access became restricted, it drew widespread scrutiny. Meghan's integration into the royal family turned an otherwise mundane administrative detail into a lightning rod. Researchers...
I think you feel really confident that it was divinely ordered. Maybe all of this, our friendship, you becoming our...
Investigators and online sleuths pored over snapshots, screenshots, and databases seeking clarity, but the answers remained elusive. The central question persists: why does 1997 carry such weight? Samantha Markle now places that same year at the heart of her claims. Allegedly, DNA results do not merely hint at a connection, they point directly to that period. Biological evidence and documentation converge, intensifying scrutiny. Where speculation once sufficed, Samantha frames a scientific component supporting the timeline. If a birth record exists, and DNA allegedly links Meghan to a child from that time, the significance of the seal becomes impossible to overlook. Supporters argue the seal is routine, designed to protect privacy. Critics question whether it is preventative, procedural, or reactive. With Meghan as a global figure, Prince Harry's reported emotional reaction underscores the urgency and weight of the moment. His shock, tears, and the struggle to reconcile personal loyalty with emerging evidence reveal that this matter is far more than paperwork or science. It touches on trust, love, and the immovable reality of DNA. And as attention circles back to 1997 and the sealed records of December 2018, Prince Harry's reported emotional reaction adds urgency to this question. When the full weight of details finally landed before him, Prince Harry reportedly felt a tidal wave of shock, unlike anything he had encountered before. The sudden convergence of sealed records, alleged DNA data, and resurfacing whispers of the past transformed the abstract into something profoundly personal. Suddenly, he was forced to retrace conversations, scrutinize timelines, and grapple with the unsettling possibility that a chapter of Meghan's past was far more complex than he had ever realized. Every memory, every assumption, and every moment he had relied on now demanded re-evaluation under the harsh glare of this unexpected revelation. And so the focus remains firmly fixed on a single year, 1997, not because it is inherently dramatic, but because every new claim, every document, every murmur of laboratory confirmation, every whispered detail seems to spiral back to it. The attention is drawn tighter and sharper with each passing day, raising the uncomfortable possibility that the seal on records was never the conclusion of the story. It may have been the opening of a far more consequential chapter, one that challenges assumptions, expectations, and trust. But how did one seemingly quiet year come to dominate headlines, rumours, and laboratory claims? How did 1997 transform from a historical footnote into a nexus of controversy and speculation? Stay with us. The question no one can ignore. As the spotlight tightens on paperwork and genetic claims, another layer emerges, shifting focus from dry documents to the intimate realities of biology itself. It involves Meghan's former husband, Trevor Engelson. For years, he has stayed largely silent, avoiding interviews and refraining from publicly criticising her. That silence once worked to Meghan's advantage. But in online investigative circles, a rumour began to surface, one that quickly became impossible to ignore. Allegedly, Trevor had made a private comment suggesting that Meghan underwent a hysterectomy during their marriage. It is crucial to stress that this remains an unconfirmed allegation. No public verification exists, no documentation has been presented, and no legal action has explicitly confirmed it. Yet, despite being unverified, the implications of such a claim refuse to fade. A hysterectomy is far from minor. It eliminates the possibility of natural pregnancy. If the allegation were true, it would create a biological contradiction with later narratives surrounding Meghan's pregnancy capabilities. If it were false, one might expect a firm rebuttal, medical documentation, or legal challenge to immediately quash the rumour. Yet, curiously, no public clarification has emerged, and no lawsuit appears to have specifically addressed this claim, despite Meghan's history of aggressively defending her reputation against other media allegations. Now, place this alongside Samantha Markle's most recent assertions. DNA results allegedly tied to a child from Meghan's past. If genetic evidence were to confirm prior childbirth, it would establish undeniably that Meghan was physically capable of having children. That fact alone would not definitively resolve the hysterectomy rumour, but it would inject a new layer of complexity into the timeline. Observers have tried to map out the tension. On one side, an allegation of a medical procedure that would prevent pregnancy. On the other, a claim of DNA evidence suggesting childbirth in an earlier period. Both cannot coexist in the same timeline without further explanation. Either one is inaccurate, or critical details remain undisclosed. This is no longer a theoretical debate. It is intensely personal. Prince Harry is now confronting alleged documentation and renewed scrutiny surrounding Meghan's past medical claims. Under royal protocol, marriage carries extraordinary expectations, particularly concerning lineage. Transparency is not merely personal, it intersects with constitutional structure, public responsibility, and the weight of history. Any unresolved medical question carries significance far beyond tabloid curiosity. The central issue is not whether the rumour is true or false, it is whether Harry was ever fully informed if there had been a prior pregnancy or medical procedure. Did he know about a hysterectomy? Was the possibility of a child disclosed? These are deeply private matters. But when DNA results and sealed records enter the conversation, they become public, charged with scrutiny, and impossible to ignore. As debates intensify, one question presses harder than all others. If a child existed before Harry entered the picture, was that chapter ever shared with him? Or is he only now learning details that should have been revealed years ago? As whispers grow louder, the shadow of doubt looms. Was Harry told the full truth from the beginning, Or is a hidden past only now surfacing? At the centre of this unfolding drama is Samantha Markle. For years, she was dismissed in the headlines as the bitter half-sister. Her public appearances were often framed as emotional outbursts, her statements portrayed as jealous, attention-seeking, or driven by resentment. That image stuck, conveniently allowing the public to ignore her warnings rather than scrutinise them. But in recent years, something has shifted. Samantha's tone has become more measured, her approach precise. The volume may have lowered, but the clarity and focus have sharpened considerably. Instead of sprawling accusations, she now relies on suggestion. Instead of lengthy emotional rants, she references documents, timelines, and, most recently, DNA. The shift is subtle but profound. She has transitioned from a figure framed as an antagonist into someone closer to a witness claiming evidence. This transformation matters. When someone shouts, audiences often tune out. When someone calmly insists they have proof and can back it up, people lean in. Samantha seems acutely aware of this. Rather than broad critiques of Meghan's character, she now zeroes in on the specifics. 1997, sealed records, alleged genetic results. She drops information in fragments, breadcrumbs designed to provoke inquiry, not demand blind belief. One of the most striking aspects of this situation is the unusual legal silence surrounding these latest insinuations. Meghan has demonstrated in the past that she is unafraid of pursuing legal action. High-profile lawsuits have shown her willingness to challenge media outlets and defend her reputation aggressively. Yet, when it comes to Samantha's DNA-related claims and the suggestion of a hidden chapter tied to 1997, there has been no sweeping defamation lawsuit aimed at quelling the narrative. That absence has only fueled speculation. Legal experts note that in any defamation case, discovery could compel disclosure of communications, medical documents, or even genetic testing to verify claims. Filing a lawsuit could open doors that have remained tightly closed for decades. Samantha appears fully aware of this dynamic. She frames her statements carefully, often as questions, implications, or subtle references to documentation. She maintains pressure without making explicit claims that would be easily challenged in court. It's a calculated strategy. She doesn't need to prove everything publicly. She only needs to suggest that evidence exists. Meanwhile, Prince Harry's silence has become part of the narrative. In previous controversies, Harry was vocal, defending Meghan publicly, issuing statements, confronting media narratives head-on. Now, with the focus on alleged DNA evidence and unresolved medical contradictions, he has offered no visible rebuttal, no detailed denial, no emotional speech, no dismissal of the claims as malicious lies. Silence, in high-profile situations, often speaks louder than words. Supporters interpret it as prudence or dignity. Critics see evasion or avoidance. What makes this moment different is that the allegations are no longer framed as personal grievances or interpersonal drama. They are biological questions tied to evidence, timelines, and the potential for factual validation. Samantha's transformation from outspoken critic to measured challenger has shifted the balance. She no longer appears to be fighting for attention. She appears to be waiting, observing whether unanswered questions will force a public or legal response. She is patient, deliberate, and strategic. She is waiting to see if legal action is taken or deliberately avoided, waiting to see whether Harry continues to stand behind the narrative he once defended so fiercely. And as the weeks stretch on without a decisive counter, the tension grows, not only around what Samantha claims to know, but around what Harry may be privately wrestling with. Every day, the story inches closer to a point where silence may no longer suffice. And how long can silence protect Harry as Samantha's claims grow louder? What secret could finally compel him to speak? The reality is raw, intimate, and deeply personal. Harry's heart is in the crossfire. No public statement, no social media post can fully convey the emotional toll. Every word he has spoken, every decision made, now hovers under a shadow of doubt, not just regarding his family, but regarding those he trusted most. Meghan, once his anchor and confidant, cannot shield him from the relentless uncertainty pressing against him. He believed in a version of reality shaped by half-truths and omissions, only to discover that one story may have cost him everything he fought to protect. Samantha Markle, once distant and muted in media, now looms over this fragile world with sharpened intensity. Her voice, once dismissed, carries weight. Her interviews, once labelled emotional outbursts, now carry a precise edge. Accusations, insinuations, and alleged truths, meticulously framed, pose a persistent challenge that refuses to fade. The complexity Harry faced wasn't simply about being right or wrong, it cut far deeper than that. It was about the staggering personal toll of love, the unbearable weight of realizing that those you depend on most can sometimes mislead you, whether intentionally or unconsciously. He found himself torn in two directions, defending the love that had defined his life or confronting the facts that threatened to shake its foundation to the core. This was a balancing act no public figure should ever have to perform under a microscope. Meghan, composed and graceful in public yet fiercely vulnerable in private, sensed the widening cracks. She could see the strain etched on Harry's spirit, the quiet despair born of sleepless nights spent replaying conversations, rereading messages, and questioning the loyalty of the family he had trusted most. Every whispered doubt, every small inconsistency became a lens magnifying the fractures in a life built on love and devotion. In those intimate moments, she held him closer than ever, whispering that their truth mattered more than anyone else's narrative. Yet even her reassurance couldn't entirely shield them from the looming weight of Samantha's revelations. The DNA results she alluded to hung like an unspoken verdict between them. How could silence continue to be a viable option? How long could private truth survive unscathed under the unyielding glare of public scrutiny? The cost of believing in one version of reality became evident in small, relentless ways. Harry found himself mentally replaying past interactions, reconsidering conversations he had once thought he understood, questioning whether moments of tenderness had been tinged with manipulation, omission, or selective disclosure. Trust, once freely given, now demanded careful calibration, a precision that no human heart is naturally trained for. And yet, his instinct to protect Meghan and their life together remained unbroken. Love demanded courage, even when every step forward was clouded by uncertainty. Every embrace, every shared glance became a quiet, unspoken assertion. Truth and loyalty could coexist. Even in the face of family conflict and unrelenting public speculation, isolation carried its own sting. Harry could no longer fully rely on the comfort of old bonds, those familiar anchors that once offered guidance and reassurance. Every decision now felt impossibly heavy, weighted with the knowledge that past omissions or half-truths could redefine everything he thought he knew. The burden wasn't just confronting Samantha's words or potential DNA revelations, it was reconciling a lifetime of expectation, tradition, and personal history with the reality that private truth often clashes violently with collective perception. He silently wondered whether choosing protection over confrontation had only postponed an inevitable reckoning. Yet, even amid the turbulence, there was one undeniable constant: the bond between Harry and Meghan. Forged through shared trials, unwavering support, and years of navigating public scrutiny together, it remained a fortress against chaos. It reminded him that love could function both as shield and compass, guiding him through moments where betrayal, rumour, and family tension threatened to define his life. But the cliffhanger loomed large. If Samantha's claims proved verifiable, if DNA confirmed what had long been whispered behind closed doors, the delicate balance of silence would collapse. Harry would be left with no choice but to confront the truth directly. And with that confrontation, the story would enter a new, unavoidable chapter, one where emotional honesty collided with public accountability, and private loyalty was tested by facts that could no longer be contained. Could the fortress they had built survive if DNA shattered silence? If whispers long relegated to private corners forced Harry to face revelations that threatened all he had sought to protect? The cracks in their armour had grown heavier with each passing day, the kind of silence that is not comforting, but loaded with unspoken questions and fragile tensions. What had once been private reassurance now felt thin, stretched almost to the breaking point by shadows of doubt. Samantha Markle's persistence, Her carefully veiled insinuations and her strategic timing had stirred a storm that neither love nor loyalty could fully calm. The heart of the matter wasn't tabloids or gossip, it was authenticity, and the evidence could no longer be ignored. DNA doesn't bend to opinion or narrative. In this arena, it became the ultimate arbiter of truth. Every private conversation, every exchanged glance, carried the weight of possibility. Every decision Harry had made, trusting family statements and assuming honesty, now hovered under the gnawing suspicion that some truths might have been deliberately withheld. Meghan felt it too. Even their seemingly unshakable love could not erase the tremors that accompanied the intersection of biological fact and emotional trust. Strategic silence had been their armor. No lawsuits, no public denials, no overt confrontations, no explanations. Yet that armor was not impervious. It was only a matter of time before the quiet would crack. And when it did, the reality Samantha had hinted at would demand recognition. The irony wasn't lost on Harry. The very authenticity he had championed publicly was now the terrain of his most private battlefield. Every look at Meghan, every whispered reassurance, had to be weighed alongside the private reckoning unfolding in his mind. How could stability endure in a marriage shadowed by uncertainty? Could love alone remain sufficient when the foundation of family truth seemed fractured? These were questions no public statement could answer, no carefully curated image could protect against. The evidence was not hearsay. It was biological, undeniable, and irrevocable, carrying a quiet, inescapable power. The tension between what was displayed to the world and what existed behind closed doors had never felt sharper. Meghan, steady and vigilant, recognized the cracks forming in Harry's usual composure. She knew that the path ahead involved more than mere defense. It demanded confrontation with a truth that required integrity, courage, and acceptance. Samantha's persistent presence underscored the fragile divide between private loyalty and public accountability. Each sealed record, each careful pause in public response, reinforced the paradox. The more they tried to shield themselves, the more the pressure intensified. Harry's internal struggle mirrored the larger theme at play, authenticity itself. To question, to doubt, to wonder whether past trust had been misplaced is human. But when undeniable evidence intrudes, it becomes an ordeal for the heart. There was no outright denial, no legal barriers, just the careful choreography of silence. Yet even that lock was beginning to strain under the weight of an impending truth. The inevitability of DNA evidence loomed over their lives like a quiet, unyielding verdict, waiting to be read. And in the midst of love, protection, and loyalty, cracks had begun to appear. The union between Harry and Meghan faced its most subtle and relentless test, not of devotion, but of transparency. When silence meets truth, even the strongest bonds feel the strain. The armor of secrecy showed its first fissures. The lock was weakening, and as Samantha's claims edged closer to potential verification, one immutable fact remained. DNA does not lie, and when it speaks, even the strongest love must confront its revelations. So, the question lingers, was the silence a shield or a signal? Could Harry have survived the full truth? Could love endure when confronted with evidence that threatens all the protective walls built over a lifetime? These are questions that transcend tabloids, gossip, and public opinion. They are intimate, unflinching, and impossible to avoid. What do you think? Could loyalty survive when confronted by unyielding biological evidence? Could trust endure when long-hidden truths demand acknowledgement? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep up with the story as it unfolds.